Hello, hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our show titled Speak of Africa. For the show of today, we have a great deal of stuff for you to watch, but we're going to start with a question. Which country was Africa's most important ally during the Cold War? The Cold War is a conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. So after the Second World War, the United States and the Soviet Union became enemies. They were fighting a lot of proxy wars. So they were not only fighting each other directly, but they were fighting through proxies. But there were other countries too that were involved. So which country was Africa's most important ally during the Cold War? Was it the Soviet Union? Was it the United States? No, it was not. It was a different country. Imagine you are a president of an African country. You send your kids to go and stay with the president of a foreign country. Normally, you'll be thinking, I'm referring to France, Britain, the United States. No, none of this, none of the above. So which country was Africa's closest, most important ally during the Cold War? If you don't know, the name of that country is North Korea. And we're going to feed you with a whole lot of information. Today, when we start looking at the scramble for Africa, a lot of countries are fighting for a piece of Africa. You need to remember the role of North Korea. Today, North Korea has emerged as a major nuclear power in the Asian Pacific region. This is not the way things used to be. North Korea really struggled. After the Second World War, North Korea actually used to be a Japanese colony before the Second World War. After America and the Allies defeated Japan, then now they also had to fight over what they call the Korean War. With the Korean War, you saw America and the Soviet Union split. They were no longer allies. The Americans were supporting South Korea, and the Soviet Union was supporting North Korea. So everything split. There was a fight between communism and capitalism for the soul of the Asians. That's how this war was fought. But North Korea emerged victorious. Then they started flexing their muscles. Even though this was a poor country in the Asian Pacific, they realized something important, something strategic. They realized that if they have to guarantee their survival, they must have nuclear weapons. And this is a lesson which a lot of African countries fail to learn. Libya, for example. Muammar Gaddafi was also developing nuclear weapons. But the West deceived him to give away his nuclear program. What happened? He was overthrown and killed. What lesson did North Korea learn from this? North Korea learned that in order to be strong, in order not to be toppled, you have to use your nuclear weapons as a bargaining chip. And that's what all the presidents in North Korea have done, starting with the founder of the North Korean state, Kim Il-sung. He had that same philosophy. All the American presidents wanted him to give away his weapons. He kept playing games. He did not give up those weapons. Then he died, and his son, Kim Jong-il, took over. He too played games. He did not give away his nuclear weapons. He had a heart attack. Then his son, Kim Jong-un, took over, and he has been running North Korea up to now. Donald Trump has been calling him the rocket man, but he's been threatening. America, you mess with me, I'm going to bomb your cities. You mess with me, I'm going to bomb South Korea. Now America is afraid. America goes and bombs Iran. Why are they not bombing North Korea? They are afraid because they know if they bomb North Korea is going to retaliate. So North Korea has been fighting this war of survival, which is a lesson most countries in Africa can learn in the modern age. But when you look at the Cold War, So after 1945, with the end of the Second World War, the United States and the Soviet Union were fighting for domination. And this domination was better seen in the African continent. When this Cold War emerged, the African countries started positioning themselves. They may talk about non-alignment, but that's not true. A lot of them started caring for favor with North Korea. And I'm going to go through the list because I'm going to give you the evidence. Talking about Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea at the time was ruled by Francisco Macias Nguema. He was the one running the country. Almost a year before he was overthrown and killed by his own nephew, he took 3 of his children to Kim Il-sung in North Korea. He left them there. One of the young kids is called Monica. Monica grew up from the age 7. She grew up in North Korea, in Pyongyang. She was brainwashed and indoctrinated in the North Korean system. Until she left North Korea, that's when she started understanding what was happening to her. But her father left her there because Equatorial Guinea was a strategic partner of North Korea. That's the reason why she was there. Okay? She was there, and she even wrote a book, Black Girl. As a black girl, she related her story. Eventually, her father was killed by his own nephew. But you could see what happened. She was raised in North Korea. She was not raised in France. She was not raised in Spain. Equatorial Guinea was a Spanish colony, but Marcel Nguema did not send his children to Spain. He sent them to North Korea, where he had a very close relationship with Kim Il-sung. Okay? So you could see how close the relationship was. So North Korea actually emerged. You're going to see a pattern in the show we're going to present to you today. North Korea was a very important ally, probably the most important ally for most of these African countries. You're going to see that. Next, we take it to Angola. In Angola, you could see that there's the war between capitalism and communism was fought heavily in Angola. A lot of people died. You had big parties because immediately after these guys fought for independence, they achieved independence, then UNITA and MPLA, Mouvement pour la Libération d'Angola, Mouvement Populaire pour la Libération d'Angola. So they started fighting with UNITA. UNITA was headed by Jonas Savimbi, while Augustino Neto was the one heading the MPLA. So America was supporting UNITA. South Africa was supporting UNITA. So that's why you had to see some of these guys in some of those frontline states escape because they wanted to fight. So they were using the frontline states as a cover. When you get states like Tanzania, those are frontline states. Zambia, those are frontline states. These guys were hiding there and protecting themselves. Okay? So that's what happened with Angola. Then, of course, Angola is not alone. You also had Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, you also had very close relationship with North Korea. Before Mengistu Haile Mariam took over in Ethiopia, North Korea was not an important ally of Ethiopia. Haile Selassie sent Ethiopian troops to fight in the Korean War. But after the Korean War, in this 1974, when Haile Mariam Mengistu took over power in Ethiopia, he decided to change alliances. Now he became a friend instead of a foe of North Korea. So North Korea now had Mengistu with his dead government regime. Now became a friend. Very, very close. North Korea was giving Ethiopia a lot of aid. Okay? So you could see this in Ethiopia. This is not limited. Then you could also see there's evidence. North Korea also was close to Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau was a Portuguese colony, but they too fought for independence. You remember guys like Amilcar Cabral. They fought a whole lot for the independence of Guinea-Bissau. During this fight, North Korea played a very important role. People may be seeing the role of the Soviet Union, but what would want to make you see? We want you to see the forgotten, the unexpected, and the secret role of North Korea in the struggle for liberation in Guinea-Bissau. Okay? So look at that. From Guinea-Bissau now, we'll take you now to Mozambique. Mozambique, this is a country, you guys remember Frelimo and Renamo, right? This was also another Portuguese colony, which was fighting to become free. They were fighting for self-determination. It's true, the Soviet Union helped them a lot, but we should not underestimate the role played by North Korea. North Korea presented itself as a country that had freed itself from colonialism, and now they wanted to be free. They did not want to be subjugated by any world power. So they started fighting, then they started making friends. So instead of isolating them on the world stage, they started making friends in Africa. And Mozambique was one of the areas where they made friends. So guys like Samora Machel were receiving a lot of assistance, political, economic, and social assistance from North Korea. North Korea was not a very rich country, but they had enough resources to share with a lot of these African revolutionaries. So this made North Korea stand out. So today, a lot of you guys are seeing North Korea as a pariah state on the world stage. They have been a victim of so many sanctions by the United Nations, yet they are not giving up the fight to become a nuclear power. They learned a bitter lesson, which the world can see now. Rocket Man, as Donald Trump calls him, he has decided that he will keep making tests. Even though the US doesn't want him to make those tests, he keeps making those tests. Even this week, as America was celebrating its 250th Independence Day, North Korea was testing more cruise missiles. This time it was in the naval area. Before, they used to do this in mountains, but now they were testing them at sea. And you could see Kim Jong-un with his military brass coming out and trying to show that the test is going on, and in 2 months he wants everything to be completed so that North Korea can become a strong naval power with naval submarines. So you can see, what can Africans learn? The lesson Africans can learn from this as we go is that if you are weak, the Western world will eat you. You have to be strong. Have you seen anybody attack North Korea? No. America performs those exercises, but they are afraid to attack North Korea. By contrast, they attack countries like Iran, countries they perceive to be weak. But Iran also has given America a bitter pill to swallow. They have responded very, very well. America bombed them a whole lot, killed a lot of their citizens, killed their leader. What did they do? They decided that they're not going to fall. They decided they will fight like Spartans, they will not surrender. And now America is backing down, and America is giving them a lot more resources. Okay? Then what about Namibia? Namibia is a textbook example of the assistance provided by North Korea to African liberation movements. Southwest People's Organization, SWAPO, benefited a lot. You remember Sam Nujoma? I remember the day he died, we had a show, we spoke about Sam Nujoma, the leader of Namibia. Today, we have Nutembo, Madame Nutembo, who is the new president, but she also has been part of this liberation movement. So she did not just emerge from nowhere, she was part of this liberation movement in Namibia. Okay? Namibia was actually colonized by South Africa, but they too wanted to be free. They were getting help from anybody who could give them help. So when North Korea decided to offer help to them, Sam Nujoma decided to take this help. And they have been fighting to make sure that they are free, and they have freed their country. And then President Netumbo is now doing things in the spirit of Sam Nujoma. She's trying to keep her country free from colonial influences, from neo-colonial influences, and that's what is happening. And we like what we see in Namibia. Then what about South Africa? South Africa itself used to be an apartheid state, which means a state that believed in racial separatedness. All the races have to live in their own places. While the white folks were living large in the big cities, in big mansions, big farms, the blacks were wallowing in ghetto townships. So even though South Africa became free, then apartheid was dismantled, a lot of those structures are still there. South Africa has still maintained that colonial, racist approach to dealing with Africans. It has not ended. So even in South Africa, the ANC were very close to not only the Soviet Union, they were also very close to North Korea, which is why when Nelson Mandela became free, he decided to give thanks, to appreciate the role of North Korea in their fight for liberation, their fight for self-determination. And North Korea itself has admitted that they gave South Africa freedom fighters a lot of assistance when they were fighting the apartheid regime. So all of this is well documented. There's evidence. So you can see that North Korea played a role that is forgotten, that is secret, then sometimes is unexpected. The country emerged from nowhere to help African countries. Then what about Tanzania? Tanzania was one of those frontline states when African movement were fighting for freedom. So we cannot forget Tanzania. Tanzania was the country of President Julius Nyerere. And Nyerere was one of those socialist governments in Africa. He foresaw the need to dismantle the colonial structures and impose a socialist structure. The country that gave him a lot of assistance was North Korea. And you can see a theme. There's a pattern emerging from the story we're presenting to you. North Korea was a very important ally of African liberation movements. Without them, we would have had a tough time. So you begin to see some of the dynamics. Because of political pressure, a lot of countries are running away from North Korea. For example, Uganda. By the time Idi Amin came to power, Uganda had a lot of close ties with North Korea. But now with Yoweri Museveni, because of a lot of pressure from the Americans and the UN, Yoweri Museveni had to announce the severing of ties with North Korea. But diplomatic ties remain. Diplomatic ties remain. What about Zambia? In Zambia, you remember President Kenneth Kaunda, right? During the time of President Kenneth Kaunda, North Korea and Zambia had very close ties. In fact, a lot of the freedom fighters who were running away from the apartheid government in South Africa were finding refuge in Zambia. And Kenneth Kaunda has his famous biography, which he wrote, when he said, Zambia must be free. Zambia must be free from colonial clutches. That was the message. Then finally, we'll take you to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe also was a country that was very close to North Korea. Zimbabwe used to be white Rhodesia. Ian Smith unilaterally declared independence and maintained minority rule. This does not sit well with Robert Mugabe and Joshua Nkomo and other freedom fighters. They started fighting against the racist regime of Ian Smith. A lot of help that they got in this fight came from North Korea. In fact, some of the brutal fights that occurred in Zimbabwe can only be told in blood. So why was North Korea doing this? So now that's where we'll come to the analysis of this video. Was North Korea doing this for diplomatic reasons, for altruistic reasons? No. North Korea was doing this for survival reasons. Because they were treated like a pariah state, they started looking for friends. They started looking for friends who can help them economically, socially, and politically. Okay? So they were doing a lot of trade. Today, they may condemn North Korea saying that, oh, they traffic in illicit business, but that's their own way of survival. They've been playing games with the Western world. They have resisted all kinds of regimes that have tried to stop them from producing nuclear weapons. And all these efforts have failed. They have finally obtained a nuclear weapon. And the club of countries that have nuclear weapons do not know what to do with North Korea anymore. China is even playing a double game. China behaves like they are censoring North Korea, but they are a partner, an ally of North Korea. So how can they really censor them? Similarly, Russia today behaves like they want to censor North Korea, but they are not censoring North Korea because North Korea is their ally. So they are just playing politics. So when you see the international world stage, people play games, nations play games based on their self-interest. For the video of today, we want you to get another eye perspective into this Cold War environment. There was a scramble for Africa which culminated in a fight between the United States of America and the Soviet Union over domination. Should capitalism dominate or should communism dominate? America wanted capitalism to dominate. The Soviet Union wanted socialism and communism to dominate. In the end, it looks like the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia was born, and capitalism emerged victorious in this fight. But even after the collapse of the Soviet Union, you think that the Cold War has ended. It has not ended. So African countries are repositioning themselves, and we're advising them to do that. In this new environment, you need to do exactly like what North Korea is doing. North Korea is taking advantage of the environment. They may say yes to sanctions, to inspections, but they know that they don't want this. So Iran indirectly is learning a lot of bitter lessons from North Korea. Iran has decided not to give up its nuclear weapons. Donald Trump has decided to bomb Iran, thinking they will bomb them into submission. It's not working. Iran knows that by giving up nuclear weapons, they're going to become the next Libya. So they don't want to become the next Libya, they want to fight. And they are ready to fight. And when you look at it, it looks like Iran eventually will become the next North Korea. They are keeping their nuclear weapons program intact. American bombing may slow them down, but it's not going to stop them because they have the will. So whoever has the will has a way, as the saying goes. Iran has the will. Iran wants to develop nuclear weapons. They may be saying publicly that, oh no, we want to use these weapons only for peaceful purposes. That's a lie. Iran understands one thing. In order to survive, they must have nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons is your own ticket. Like Israel. Israel has nuclear weapons. Who is going to attack Israel? Nobody. All those Arab countries are afraid. Iran is the only country that has even dared to attack Israel. All the other Arab countries are afraid. Okay? So, what the example of North Korea has shown the world is that if you can acquire nuclear weapons, that gives you a ticket to survive. That is a certificate of security. No fool is going to attack you when you have nuclear weapons. Even the greatest country on earth, the United States, is going to be afraid of you when you have nuclear weapons. They've learned the example of Libya, and North Korea has been saying it publicly. From the example of Libya, they realize that it is foolish to give up nuclear weapons just because the UN or the United States has asked you to do that. When you do that, you open yourself to attacks. That's the lesson North Korea has learned, and that's the lesson North Korea is teaching the world. That you need to resist. Play games. Don't give up. When you look at all the three regimes in North Korea, they have successfully dribbled all international inspection regimes. Starting with Kim Il-sung, They played games and won. Next, Kim Jong-il came. They played games and won. Then Kim Jong-il died. Then his son, Kim Jong-un, came. And he too is playing games. Finally, when he came, he proved that they actually have good weapons. All this time, North Korea was struggling to come up with a good bomb. It was not easy. They made a lot of mistakes. But what you can learn from this, they made a lot of mistakes, but they kept returning to the drawing board. They kept improving on their science. Initially, they will make mistakes. They will misfire. Americans and other parties will be laughing at them. But they decided to not give up. They focused on their goal. Their goal was to have a nuclear weapon. And now they have nuclear weapons that can reach the American coastline. They say they can even bomb cities in America. America is scared. And this is why you see now America is not threatening them. America would threaten Venezuela. America would threaten Iran. But America is not threatening North Korea. So Iran itself has learned a bitter lesson. If you want to protect yourself against aggression from the United States, you better build nuclear weapons. You better build submarines. When you have all these weapons, this becomes a way to protect yourself. He who wants to prepare for peace prepares for war. If you want peace, start preparing for war. Because if you are weak, in the jungle, we say survival of the fittest. If you cannot survive, it means you are weak. If you want to survive, you have to be strong. So that's the lesson the example of North Korea is teaching us. So already, so many African countries, from what we've shared with you, have close ties with North Korea. Pressure from the United States and the United Nations has forced a lot of African countries to sever ties with North Korea. But is that good for the interests of African countries? That's the question most of these African countries need to start asking. Why are you giving up your sovereignty? Is it wise? Why are you giving up? So that's the question we keep asking, and we will need answers. So most African countries need to watch this video, then they need to think for themselves. Nuclear weapons can be a guarantee from attacks from the United States and warlike countries like Russia. Look at the example of Ukraine. Ukraine was forced to give up their nuclear weapons. What happened? They became fodder for Russia. So now, we repeat, when you give up nuclear weapons, you make it easy for these countries to attack you. So, African countries, learn the lessons we've just taught in this video. Thank you very much.
Selling a service or a product? Need buyers? Use the African Nation TV as a channel to reach many viewers. Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131. Act today.